Hello YouTube, my name is Reject, and this is my commentary of my album Panic Can't Justify, which I released on May 14th. So I'm going to be just talking about, my creative process of making each song, and what they're about, so, I guess go more in depth on them. Just something I like to do, like I did this for Tug of War, something I like to do for my projects. So if you have some time, I hope you can kick back and enjoy this little commentary. If you haven't heard the album, I recommend checking that out before you listen to this, because it kind of won't make sense if you don't check that out beforehand. So let's get into it. The first song on the album is called Say Hey. This is one of the earlier ones I wrote, and as with the opening song on Tug of War New Feats, it was written with the intention of being an opener. You could probably tell that by listening a little bit. I contemplated not even using it because I felt like it gave the wrong impression of what the album was about, I guess, and I felt like it was definitely something that would have fit more on Tug of War than on Panic Can't Justify, because it had kind of introspective lyrics, which was a trend in Tug of War, but that was kind of something I wanted to stay away from on this new album. And I usually don't have music pieces and songs. I usually have all lyrics. But I heard the loop of the atmospheric sound towards the end of the song that I put in there, and I saw potential for using that. The song itself is kind of about my mental process of songwriting and how I was having trouble getting back into it at the time. And at the end of the song, the chorus fades out, and that's something I've always wanted to do. I've heard other artists do, so I thought that that'd be a cool little thing to add. The second song of the album is called Useless Feelings, or Only Myself. I couldn't decide which name I wanted to go with. And it starts off with the first lyrics that are kind of seemingly random, and that contributed to the name Useless Feelings in a way. And I remember when I wrote it, as cheesy as this sounds, I was in the car staring out the window onto the highway, and I was thinking how big the world was, and I wanted to relate that to how much potential music has. As mind blown, that was weirdly deep. Uh, and this was one of the ones written early in the process as well, and the album kind of went in order, correlating how it was written in the track list. The concept is really just meant to follow up. One line that stood out for me was the line, I know you want to leave, but please believe I'm almost done talking about myself, because I felt like it was weird that the first two songs of the album really didn't fit the concept of the rest of it, and someone I feel like might have gotten the wrong idea of what the album was, and it felt like these songs worked to introduce it nonetheless, though. I think they kind of still worked. And I definitely got experimental with the music, with the African piano thing. At the very end, I say, Panic Can't Justify Act 2, which just means I was trying to enter a new phase of the album. Okay, moving on. See what I did there. The next song I'm going to talk about is called Caffeine Culture, and I feel like this one might have been easy to misinterpret. And first of all, I'm not saying I'm against coffee. I drink it every day myself. And I just feel like it causes people to not be as energized once they come down. And they are for the first couple hours, but then they have to just to get through their shit jobs, and they crash when they come home. I wrote this after a dialogue I heard in school with a teacher and student about coffee, pretty much. And I also play with the idea that the government uses coffee to brainwash people. I realize that's a little out there. But if you understand it correctly, this one is kind of self-explanatory. Okay? Okay. The line, we all need to live independently of anything we think we need, that goes beyond coffee and into anything that's in your life that you feel like controls you and you can't live without. So now I'm going to talk about the first interlude called Dusty Mattress. This came from a random songwriting exercise that I heard about online, where you're supposed to turn your brain off and just whatever random words come to your mind, just write those down. For me, those words were Firefly and Dusty Mattress for some reason. And I was like, fuck it, this could be something, I could make something out of this. And I wanted to make these interludes like mini songs, so this actually might have been the first thing I recorded for the album, come to think of it. The hotel room is sort of just a metaphor for sadness and failure in life. Fucking dark, Jesus. So the fourth song, and the first comedy song on the album that I'm going to talk about next, is called Lucid Dream Life. It came from another thing I heard about online, like Dusty Mattress. I read all the shit about how lucid dreaming enhances your mind and how you should do it. It's pretty much when you can control what's happening in your dream. And I decided to try this one night when I went on vacation in Florida, and it was really fun the first time I did it. I sort of made up that stuff that I think happened at the beginning because, to be honest, I can't remember it that well. It kind of became a habit and something I always wanted to try to do. And eventually, as I get to in the song, it went badly, and I was literally chased by a demon and lost control of the dream. But the part about that in the song is pretty exaggerated, and I'd actually probably recommend trying it if you never have done it before and think that might be something you'd want to try. But it was really just meant to be a fun little comedy song, uh, which talked about that. Next up is The Famous and the Rest, which was the lead single, the first one I released for this album in like early April, I think. So, celebrity culture is definitely something we all keep up with to some extent. Some of us keep up with it more than others. And one day I got to thinking, like, why are we so obsessed with these people after all? And I also thought that I could come up with someone, or we can all come up with someone in our own life who is something like any of them, any celebrity, and that's pretty much that concept, that idea is where the song came from. And the reason I thought it was a good lead single is because it kind of portrays the general concept of the album, which is like analyzing a certain topic and giving a new take on it, something that people might not have thought of before. And it's probably one of the more upbeat and fun type songs musically. And I'd say probably my best work ever lyrically, maybe. And even the 30-second intro bit is pretty intense. Okay, so if I remember correctly, this next song I'm going to talk about, called Retardo, the curse one, I'm pretty sure I wrote it around the time that David Bowie died. And at this point, in January, I want to say, I was in the middle of writing the album, and I heard about how he did an album with a character called Ziggy Stardust, and I thought, hey, I always played characters and shit in skits I did, because I used to have a YouTube channel where I made skits and stuff, play characters, and I figured, why don't I try bringing that out into my music? And I came up with this idea of a guy who feels pain of everyone and is generally miserable. He's like the world's voodoo doll, and I actually do plan on doing an entire EP based on this character. Oh, that'll be interesting. And the EP is not super bleak like the song is, so don't worry. There's a few comedy parts, even in this EP, that I would compare him to like Deadpool, because I gave him like this sarcastic personality. Anyway, this screaming part at the end definitely took a toll on my voice, and musically, it's pretty dark with the bass and everything, which it would have to be based on how fucking dark the lyrics are. My favorite part is probably when I call myself out in the second verse, like I mentioned my own name. And I guess this is probably one of the ones where I like to leave some of it open to your own interpretation, so I won't talk anymore about it. So with the exhaustion interlude, I was looking for one more interlude later in the process, and I was scrolling through my notes and found this, so I figured I would use it. It's about not being able to catch a break and wanting to get out of like a cycle of monotony. I got like a grungy vibe from the guitar loop, so I went with it. I was listening to different loops, and I heard that, and I decided to go with it, and threw some strings in there. That's most of the production. The second comedy song in this EP that I'm going to talk about next is called Snow Day. It was written in February during a snow day season when snow days are common, it's snowing out a lot, and it was one of those days where you woke up expecting there'd be a snow day because you weren't sure if there'd be or not the night before, and it didn't happen, so you're just pissed that you even have to go to school because you thought you might not have to. And I decided to use this because it seems like something most people could relate to and laugh at. And when I picked the name of a girl in like the end of the second verse, whose boobs I stare at, that was awkward. I tried to come up with a name. I was trying to come up with a name that no girl in my school has, and Whitney is a pretty uncommon name in Connecticut, you could imagine. So I hopefully got it with that. So the next song I'm going to talk about is Heart vs. Head, and as I make it obvious with this song, I was reluctant to write this, and despite the fact that I'm personal as hell a lot of times in my music, love has always seemed like a territory that I didn't really want to touch on. I felt like it was generic in music anyway, and that was just oversaturated on the radio and in music in general. I figure I should update you since the song I barely talked to her, so no happy ending there. And I think this song is probably some of my best work because the radio, like I said, is oversaturated with love songs. And sort of the opposite, I feel like, to hear a song that's generally, genuinely about having disdain for the concept of love. uh, and I recorded this in a closet. No, not that I was secretly gay. Secretly gay, in fact. Jeez, my speech impediment's acting up. Uh, no, there was a closet in my parents' condo, uh, and I recorded it in there when they were out. And I was pretty sure I heard a knock on the door when I was done recording, so probably got a noise complaint. Well, hey, at least if she did hear what I was saying, she got an interesting show, right? I mean, I mentioned Ritalin in the song, which could have positive or negative effects, so it kind of depends on if how you interpret it, me saying it. The line, I feel like I'm high on a Ritalin pill when I lay my eyes on you, could go either way. The last interlude that I'm going to talk about is called Everyone's Wish, and I feel like if anything, this interlude would be the best thing that actually sums up the entire album. It's about how everyone has their own problems. Some people's pain is looked at differently than others, which correlates with the album title. And sometimes it's just said that one person is bullshitting about their pain. I think I came up with the album title after I wrote this interlude, actually. I remember I was just sitting in Spanish class really bored, and I was like, fuck yeah, that's my album name. Well, no, what's something I do every day? Well, besides on weekends at least. Go to school. Therefore, I thought that was a perfect thing to write a song about. The song was really a pain in the ass to mix properly. At first the lyrics were too loud, and then the music was too loud. Ended up just going with the volume of the music being a little too high. Just said whatever with that. And there's stuff that was quiet, like there was a piano that you can barely even hear. Anyway, this song was one I knew I had to write. In elementary school, they always tell you you can be anything when you grow up. And by the time you get to high school, you realize that that is barely true. That's really pessimistic, geez. I'm just reading off my notes here. I must have been in a bad mood when I wrote a commentary for this one. And at the end of the song, I reached a conclusion that at the end of the day, school doesn't matter much, and it really is a pointless thing we're forced to do. It's kind of ironic because I'm a schoolboy that's supposed to be dumb, and I use the line, I pledge damnation to the rope voted down by devoted pawns. It's a tongue twister too, geez. Which is a kind of confusingly complex line a lot of people wouldn't understand. I was really mad when I wrote this, God. This song is just meant to shine a light on what I felt to be a flawed education system and feel to be. And I think all teachers really do is preach a religion of making sure you become a suburban middle class community member, just like them, and contribute by having kids getting married and dying. My God, it's just dark. Could go on about that all day, so I'll just stop now. And the song clock's in almost 5 minutes. Jeez, that's really long.